episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show with another fascinating guest involved in creating a better tomorrow for all of us. As a little background to today's show, the European Space Agency is an intergovernmental organization of 22 member states dedicated to the exploration of space. It was established back in the 1970s. It's headquartered in Paris, has a staff of around 2,200 around the world and a budget of around a little over $7 billion. The European Space Agency flight program includes human space flight, the launch and operation of uncrewed exploration missions, Earth observation, science and telecommunication, designing launch vehicles, and maintaining a spaceport in French Guiana. The European Space Agency Business Applications program is a program that supports the development of sustainable services that use space assets, and it offers expert support to entrepreneurs as well as funding depending on the type of innovation. We're honored today to be joined by Elia Montanari, who is head of the management and control in the European Space Agency Business Applications Division. Elia holds a master's degree in business administration from the Henley Business School, master's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Bologna, and has studied in development foundation at MITx program. He is also deeply involved in a charity called Space Brain X, where he aims to use space to help further power global education. He is an accredited investor with a variety of interests in private equity, very interested in the areas of artificial intelligence, a lot going on here. So let's get started. Welcome, Elia Montanari, to the show.
Thank you very much. What an incredible introduction. Thank you. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Where do we start?
We start with you, and I'm going to hand things over to you just for you to talk about yourself. If you could take us back a little bit to basically where you grew up, how you developed this broad set of interests that you have, and then if you can talk a little bit about how somebody that was involved in finance and control functions in the consumer packaged goods space ultimately developed such a love of outer space. I think that'd be a great way to start off.
Yes, I'm coming from a place in Italy that is not so well known. But it used to be the capital of the Roman Empire. The name is called Ravenna. It's not Rome, and it used to be a small port on the Adriatic Sea, together with Byzantium. Now today Istanbul. Both towns now actually have great representation of the Byzantine mosaics that are the very sparkly gold and green mosaics, arts that was developed during that time. So, but that may explain a little bit the like of artistic things. And but to be fair, that area is actually not a really rich area. And many things have happened. Let's say it's a very agricultural area. And in fact, in order to study, you have to go to Bologna, that is one of the oldest university in the world. They claim it's the oldest. I'm now living in Oxford, and I am sure that the Jesuits of Bologna went to Oxford in order to found the University of Oxford. So we know that at least Bologna is a little bit older than Oxford in that sense. Anyway, so and there maybe one of the opportunities, let's say in this area, was more into the engineering side, and therefore one of the engineering aspects that I liked the most during my studies was chemistry, and I did like to think you can tinker with the matter and develop new things. So that was it. But I never practiced a lot as a chemical engineer. In fact, I did a little bit. I worked in the oil industry. I didn't enjoy it so much for a number of reasons. One of them is dirty. We know it. At that time, there was not such an idea of the dirty of the oil industry. Was everybody was working there because it was rich. You could find a job and stuff. But I did little there, and they didn't like it. And then I moved on and started working in Procter & Gamble. From there, very soon, in my mid-20s, I went to Brussels. Okay. From Italy, never left Italy, to Brussels. Okay, and there we were doing many things, many things. And I started doing Pringles, the crisp.
Sure.
I liked it quite a lot. I traveled also to US, by the way, in Jackson, Tennessee, where there is big plant of Pringles. And there were these two big plants, one close to Brussels and one in Jackson, Tennessee. And I started learning about the world and various ways, in particular, how you perceive, for example, US from, let's face it, I was coming from Italy and then exposed shortly into the European world, and you come to US, you don't find the United States that you expect in Jackson, Tennessee.
Sure.
There are many different cultures,
Oh, yeah.
in US as well. So it was a very interesting experience. And there packaging, it was more kind of project management. And for some reason, I thought, why not solving a problem there in the manufacturing business takes 3 to 4 weeks. You have a problem on the line, a serious problem, it takes a lot of time. So I developed an interest in developing, problem-solving solution in a much shorter period of time, like IT. And then I went into this sort of ERP business, so enterprise system like SAP and management system. And there it was much more fun, in fact, because you could solve problems very, very quickly with that sort of thing. And from there, the step into finance was actually quite short. And from there, practically, one friend of mine said, why not, with your skills you developed, in particular the problem solving, why not try to join the European Space Agency? Joined a few years before. I said, yeah, actually the product is very, very interesting, space and stuff. And I joined as let's be fair, I've joined as an administrator, as an accountant, this sort of thing. Also there I found really interest, in particular, the very first assignment was related to launchers. And I found it a fascinating thing because you go back, for example, also there to the element of chemistry. Mm-hmm. So solid boosters, solid propellant boosters, or oxygen main stage and stuff like that. And I was given the opportunity also to travel around, let's say, metaphorically speaking, the European Space Agency in various assignments. And one of them was a very big project that launched in February in 2020. It's called Solar Orbiter.
Okay.
That was an enormously interesting thing. I mean, let's face it, NASA has already been there, but the European Space Agency has developed 10 instruments to study all sorts of aspects of the sun. And these studies will, for example, make sense also about let's say, the solar storms,
mm-hmm.
That can affect very, very deeply what's happening on Earth. So here you go, immediately a return. You kind of immediately catch this sort of returns to us as humankind. But on top, there were very specific scientific capability, like traveling more into the poles of the sun and observing things that were never observed. Although doing this, this is fascinating, but doing this very big project, you start that you are, in your mid-30s, and you end up practically when you're a pensioner, because they are so long, they
Sure.
are so important, they are, and you need to be able to relay, the button and make sure that things catch along. The scientists that will study the data of Solar Orbiter will be the next generation scientists.
Sure.
So we have to think also many of the missions that NASA and the European Space Agency and JAXA and the many agencies that are around there that are doing very deep space exploration will do. So that's fascinating, but that kind of posed an issue, and I thought, why am I here? And I kind of I spend my life in one project and then it's finished. So I looked more into the entrepreneurship. And when I joined ESA, to be fair, it was the first years of the mega success of Elon Musk. Actually, mega success. He was starting.
Sure.
Everybody was laughing about him. Everybody. And I was looking at him and thinking, oh, this guy is failing every other rocket. He was exploding a rocket, I don't know, every 3 months. But he was trying and he kept going. And eventually he did something that nobody else is doing. It's practically science fiction. Now, you see it in the movies, like that there is this thing that lands on his feet.
Yeah.
And now it's possible. So people are looking up at this gentleman and thinking, he tried and tried and tried, and he made it. And it was about 15 years ago when he started his business with SpaceX, and now he's the leader of the launcher business. And so that's what kind of fascinated me, in fact, and brought me into the entrepreneurship. And now we are dealing with a huge number of startups, and it's amazing how many ideas these guys bring up, and these are true ideas. And you say, there is a problem. I want to change the world by doing something new. And space has also evolved throughout the years. We are talking about Elon Musk and one of the examples, but there are many, many things, many aspects of space that are revolving around the space business. I mean, both as a spin in and a spin out. Health, for example, that is so active these days, in particular with COVID and everything goes around it. An astronaut that goes into space, and this is in the words of Jean-Francois Clairvoy, that is an astronaut, a French astronaut that is retired, that I esteem and admire a lot, says it becomes an alien. As soon as you are in space, you become an alien because you develop all sorts of diseases, everything. And I remember seeing this list of conditions that needs to be treated, and therefore you need to study very, very deeply what is the human condition in microgravity, in different exposure of radiation, because you are much more exposed outside the atmosphere. So health as a part, or data. Every picture you take from space is a wealth of information. And nowadays we are coming up to the realization that space, being global, can provide a number of information. It's not anymore only the premises of, let's say, spying games or big superpowers that want to understand this or the other activity, but it's very useful in agriculture, for example, also in the sustainable development goals, monitoring. Who is polluting, who is cutting trees, who is this sort of thing, who is polluting the ocean as well. You can do a lot from space, and this, I find it fascinating, and in particular on the fact that small companies are capable to come up with ideas that, with my corporate experience, sometimes you kind of brush aside and say, yeah, but this is not my problem. This is, it's not scalable. And these people actually find a way to make it sustainable, both in terms of profitability, because without profitability it's not sustainable, of course. Also in terms of, for us as people and for the planet. So this is maybe a short history. I must have forgotten, 2,000 things about my life, but it's and about the European Space Agency. So it's a privilege, by the way, to work for the European Space Agency, and the many things that we do are truly amazing. And I'm looking at these young entrepreneurs we are working with. We in excess of 2,000 companies. Obviously, not everybody is very successful, but we have more than 2,000 companies that are growing, and we adding every year like 200, 300, 400, depending on the year, of course, but on an average, at least 300 companies that in the future, as I see it, they will become the future corporates that are capable to change the world.
Fascinating. Could you walk us through the So my understanding, sort of reading that you have European Space Agency Space Solutions, and as a part of that, Business Applications, which you are involved in as a component. Talk us through those units and what exactly they both do.
So you have to imagine the European Space Agency as a corporate. So there are various boxes that takes care of verticals, and you mentioned them at the beginning. One of them is the launcher, space transportation, is the human exploration with astronauts. And the box where I'm sitting is actually telecommunication. The business application and the space solution that we develop are exactly those. Why are we fitting in this box? Because we actually go across any sort of specialty. In reality, we can use Earth observation data, that is another directorate, or health elements that are developed for astronauts, therefore human and robotic exploration, or also IP from science, and why not telecommunication from space, SATCOM.
Sure.
Why are we there? Because in the past, telecommunication was the most commercial business. You have to think about the satellite, telecommunication and the broadcast through satellite. It's always been the most commercial business around space. And is obviously linked to the fact that because television can be broadcasted through space worldwide, then you can broadcast, you can make money through advertisement and things, and rights of vision rights and this sort of thing. And that's why the business side comes there. We have very strong proximity with the business, and let's say that what we give to companies is a reasonably small ticket size of 1 to 2 million euro to develop an MVP, a prototype, and make sure that they can go on the market with this sort of money. But we don't give all the money. We typically are in a co-funded type of scheme, 50-50. So investors or project financing or customers chip in and they provide other things. Of course, this is a funnel, and this is the tip of the funnel. In the business application, there is broader base that is, let's say, the 2,000 companies, that is much, much broader. And then they developed in various phases into projects that are more tuned and developed, yes.
And, we were talking offline about the European Space Agency Investor Forum that you have, where you have not just the startups and the young companies, but you have many of these large corporates that are interested. And I was joking a bit that obviously we see names on there like the Airbuses of the world, makes sense. The BASF, obviously chemistry, your domain, lots to learn about chemistry. There's also names like Coca-Cola on there. And originally I was thinking, well, maybe they want to figure out how to send up your Pringles and the Coca-Cola. So, but talk a little bit about some of the unusual partners that you have in the investor forum. Obviously nothing confidential, but some of the things that you might not think, obviously, well, Airbus wants to figure out how to do some space, but some of these other companies that you may, what are they doing up in space? Tell us some interesting stories.
So yes, in fact, the ESA Investor Forum is a little bit a platform where we bring the supply and demand, So the supply is these projects with an MVP, and the demand is the companies, the companies or the investors, and we mesh them together and we see whether they can find agreements, in particular to springboard this company to their future funding. I believe that in US you are absolutely very well advanced in that sort of business of matching. And I look obviously as an example of the strong capitalism that is there. At the various stages in particular. So you don't skip any stage. We use this as investor forum to bring this unusual set of investors to an unusual set of companies. Although I have to admit that, well, first of all, we bring companies to the ESA Investor Forum, they are ready to a stage where they can be presented to investor. So it's typically like Series A or beyond.
Okay.
So they never come really at the very seed stage. So we do also other things for the lower kind of ticket size, and they have to have something developed. And then this sort of array of companies, as I was also saying before, they could be operating in many different areas. I'll take an example of a company that is obviously not a secret. It's called Mosaic Smart Data.
Okay.
And they work with the JP Morgan, right? They use, and they have used in the past, an IP that is linked to an intellectual property that we used in space in order to maintain control of the thousand of indicators and ticks and stuff that goes on in the aircraft. It was the early days of artificial intelligence. How do they use this IP? They use it to monitor the fixed income market to see patterns. Okay, so weirdly, you could think, but me too. Especially when we thought about that, they thought, maybe this methodology could give us indicators and find an edge, find an alpha that is capable to give to a trader. We can provide to a trader, because obviously they're intermediary, right? They provide the tool and they say, through this thing, I can tell a JP Morgan trader, but they work also for other, banks and stuff. They provide their tool to other banks to say, look, there is something that is strange here. There is value. It's like a dashboard, right? It's like you're piloting a plane, you have this dashboard and a red light comes on.
Yep.
In a similar way that you do it in a control room for a deep space satellite, as we think, that needs to move and control temperature, exposure to the sun, tilt of the solar array and stuff like that, you can basically have a dashboard for other type of things. And another thing that is interesting, this sort of mega control rooms are developing more and more. Banks have it, other places have it, because they need, things go wrong in there, and maybe a tool is not available for a minute, they lose 300 million or something like that, because a future has not been traded in the way that it was supposed to be traded, based on whatever algorithm. So I may be exaggerating, but they could be losing very, very quickly a substantial amount of money. That's one of the story. You mentioned also Coca-Cola. Of course, we are under NDA. We are not going to disclose some of the deals. But for example, when we spoke initially with Coca-Cola, they approached us quite in a curious way. They thought maybe there is something that is interesting also for us in investment. And in fact, the robotics parts of space and the automation that you could use in terms of GPS, satellite navigation, and alerts for specific for specific assets. Coca-Cola has many assets around the world.
Yeah,
these assets are fridges, so they want to monitor them. And one of the things I remember from the Coca-Cola, say, mission statement is that you can get Coca-Cola anywhere in the world. You have just to turn around and grab a can.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, you need very, very good logistics system and a very good asset spread around. So it's a strong brand in marketing, and I think they've, in a way, they've survived all sorts of things, Coca-Cola, because it's every year there is a new product, a new fad, a new fashion, a new something, but they are still going strong, and this is because they come up with new ideas. And we have provided a couple of good new ideas that they say, okay, so that's interesting, and why not? Let's go for it.
Interesting. Really interesting. As far as the, you mentioned obviously the connection with space and health. Obviously, it's a very tough environment up there. You have sort of this alignment with the UN sustainability goals for health and well-being, but not everything I was reading. Not everything is about just that. Obviously, you can learn up there how to new ways to deal with sunburn and aging from all that radiation. But then there's also I was reading some interesting things that you guys were involved in terms of actually Ebola, and that the way that a satellite antenna does something up there was very useful down here for setting up mobile labs for the Ebola crisis, which is very interesting.
It's a nice story.
Yeah.
That's
Tell us
a very
about
nice
that
story.
one. Yeah.
So a few years ago, it's not. It went on the media that there was an Ebola outbreak in Africa,
Yeah.
in the Congo, and in the state of Congo. And Ebola is very deadly.
Sure.
Is extremely deadly, and the outbreak requires a number of things, specialized labs that are capable to figure out whether you have the disease or not, specialized analysis, and specialized doctor and infrastructure in order to host these people that are affected by the disease. And what space has been able to do through the telecommunication in particular is to enable what we often take for granted for example, in Europe, but also in US, and this is the telemedicine. So telemedicine, remote places, is allowed through this SATCOM, so satellite communication. And this is basically the opportunity for, kind of setting up tents and camps in very remote region to offer locally the help that you can have globally. You see, so in the things that can be actually understood and assessed by a European doctor can be offered there through the SATCOM. And we take it for granted, but that's not the same around the world. You cannot go to the local doctor and say, we speak. And in a similar way, you have to think, for example, like an astronaut is up there and say, oh my God, I have terrible tummy ache. Okay, do this, do that, take a sample, send me the sample information. And there is no doctor up there.
Right.
There is a doctor down that assess the information and say, okay, yes, you probably have to come back with the next spaceship down, or no, don't worry, it's just something that it's not life-threatening. So this I want to say another thing. In fact, that more and more will experience this sort of outbreaks in a way, and it will, especially with the media, we have more exposure. It could easily, any of these outbreaks could have happened without us knowing.
Yeah.
So we will do more and more, and we, thanks to the satellite communication, will be able to act through these sort of products an infrastructure that makes capable, makes it capable to offer a high level of skills and an intervention that is available in different parts of the world into the less, into the more needy or the less served type of the world, like can be Africa.
Sure. What is Space Brain X all about? Because I know this is one of your inventions, I believe. You created this yourself. It's connected with ESA.
So I don't claim the entire invention, to be honest.
Okay. I'll give it to you anyway.
Yes, it's a joint venture with my colleague Nathalie Dorval.
Okay.
So it's an Italo-French or Franco-Italian invention. And we are colleagues, and we I don't know, we were motivated because of our children to, let's say, less able children, to develop this opportunity basically for people
Uh-huh.
that not that are less able, but they have talents, and they can approach space tech in a way with additional funding. And we thought all sorts of things. So obviously our objective was always STEM, so basically the scientific subjects, with an eye to space. Space, because obviously we work in space, but also because we see a lot of things about space, about the health, about the dream, about being an astronaut, and the motivation can spark into people, and in particular children, in particular.
Sure.
Early, and also later. We thought, yes, we can do more. And we thought all sorts of things. And obviously, you go around, there are scholarships, there are plenty of things. We said, why not establishing a scholarship with funds that are developed and they are obtained through selling junks? And what sort of junks can we sell? It's actually space junk. But not space junk in effect, as we talk about today, that out there is a layer. Actually, if we could actually reach out to these pieces, then they would have a lot of value. So what has happened to space over the years, and in particular through the various space races and stuff? We have seen that the fascination of space and the history of space has developed into a way that many objects that went into space and came back have become collectible. And this is the idea. It's not a new idea. It's other people have done it. Our advantage was that we had a few objects and we could tap in a number of people in our network that would say, do you want to donate? And gratefully, we have to say that Omega from Switzerland donated a precious watch that has been up to space and has been developed by the gentleman we were talking about before, the astronaut Jean-François Clairoy, for the needs of an astronaut. So knowing the time, the space station goes very, very quickly around.
Yeah.
I think it goes around like 16 times a day. So you see, sunrise and sunset like 16 times a day, and it goes very fast across the globe. So it was developed for that reason, and they donated one of these. This was, let's say, the precious piece, and some other astronaut have donated small objects like flag, small booklets. Samantha Cristoforetti has donated small booklets that because everything you bring up there, it has to be fairly small. Weight is a concern. Weight. And we raised a bunch of money. This money are finally basically put into a few recipients that are sponsored scholarship for PhDs and for master to develop masters in the subject of space in the in Europe. And these guys, there are three people that have obtained this scholarship. I'm very proud. Finally, I managed to do it last year. At the end of last year, we have a group of 3 people that have obtained a good scholarship of 10K each euro, and they will be able to develop their things. So I think it's a substantial amount of money to pursue their dream, and hopefully we'll kind of give them the feeling that in the future there is somebody, they can look around and there is somebody that can help. So I'd like to add that we haven't scheduled the next auction. That is actually the way that we sold the items. Is not something simple. Let's face it. You need to find the objects.
Sure.
You need to find objects that are interesting from a collectible point of view. But we our motto is never give up. It's never give up because it's difficult. It's a lot of work, and you have to do it on top of everything else that happens, around you and with the normal job. And but because it's fun, we do it, and is a foundation, is not for profit, and it has a higher purpose, and it really connects to the, as you say, to the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, education, and for which I'm a strong proponent. And
Sure.
I wish that many people actually would join our cause, because it's such a powerful thing. I'll tell you another story if you allow me.
Please.
I realized that I'm talking a lot, but a couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to be invited in at the UNGA in New York, and I went there as a space brain, and also representing the interest of the European space agencies. And the important thing was that when you hear everybody talking, they think that the SDG that they keep close to their heart is the most important one, of course. Everything derives from the rest. I developed this thinking because I was sitting there and everybody was giving, I don't know, the equality, gender equality, absolutely important, or equality in general. It's absolutely important, and everything derives from there. And then there is health. Obviously, there is no health. SDG number 3, you cannot do anything. And you say, of course, you cannot do anything without health. And then obviously I had also my strong conviction that if you don't have a good education, you cannot actually go forward, you cannot improve, and you cannot do other things. And therefore education is absolutely essential to have good health and stuff. So, but then once I came to my senses, also myself, I thought, yes, okay, it has to be a trade-off. It must be a trade-off, because you cannot say no health or education or climate, because if we disrupt the entire planet, there is no second planet, and therefore we will be all gone, and therefore there is no SDG to talk about. And I agree with that. But if you stop, for example, transport or agriculture, we have very productive method nowadays that allow us to talk to each other during this conversation when somebody else is doing is collecting the food for us, right? So this is a very productive system. If you stop that, we stop eating. So SDG number 1 suffers. We stop eating. We don't want to go to school. It has to be a trade-off. It has to be a trade-off, and everything that is a complex framework, this of the SDGs, but it's it does represent a lot. And it's if you think about it, it's not a stupid idea that there is so many things that come into play, and we need to see how to to balance all these elements in the right way.
Absolutely. You mentioned your partner in Space Brain X. Obviously, you work with a lot of fascinating people within ESA Space Solutions and business apps and so forth. Please take some time, if you would, to mention anyone that you want, other colleagues, other mentors, influencers in your career that have continued to help and keep you on this particular path, which is very important.
This I have to say is a very complex question, and
take your time with it.
It's very complex because I had a number of people that influenced my my life, and it's and everybody, it's it's like people say, as the old saying says, you are a kind of minions on top, standing on the shoulder of giants, right? Because I see it much more, in little bits and pieces. Because, for example, of course, my parents and I, obviously, where I am today, I probably the very first thing is I owe it to my parents, because they told me, yes, keep going. Maybe I was not the perfect student, but where I am now, it's because of them, because they pushed me, and I had to study, and eventually you develop a love for subjects and stuff. So that's absolutely my first thing. And But then you also kind of see your friends around, and there is a peer pressure. You say, maybe I also owe this thing to to my classmates to start with. And my classmate, I have still a few friends from the high school. They're a little bit spread on the world, but it's we have I have still these friends, Giovanni and Marco, obviously Italian because we were in Italy. That one is in Spain, the other one is in Switzerland now, to demonstrate that we are sort of global nomads, and we have to keep going like this. We cannot be confined to small places, and it's important because everybody brings their experience, and it kind of pushes you in sort of benignly to do more. And then during my career, I did have a number of good people that have influenced me, in terms of both motivation. I have to say, this is also a relationship of love and hate. I remember my Dutch boss, Hans. He gave me a huge amount of trouble, but you could tell he was a very smart guy and very smart in developing an organization, that fits purpose. And lately also, and I remember him with also with love, because he's my he's passed away, unfortunately, Amnon, and he used to be my direct manager, and he was really visionary. I have to say that he started this program, and I now realize we're talking about probably 10 years ago, maybe even more, maybe 12 years ago. We are talking about ESA Business Applications Space Solution, had a different name, and he's really the father of this program. So when I see where we are now today, and everybody kind of looking up at us and say, we want to do it as well. So everybody wants to copy us, right? And what does it mean? That this guy 12 years ago was a visionary because he saw many things happening and going in that direction. So that's maybe a short recount, and please forgive me because I would have left out many people that helped me, and for which I'm extremely grateful in my journey here. Yes, maybe one person that I'd like also to say that is my professor of literature in the high school.
Okay.
Maybe you heard it, or probably I didn't say it properly, but at the high school I was not a very good student.
Neither was I.
I was not the model student, maybe at that age you're a bit crazy and all sorts of things happen inside you. But that guy really kind of sort of said, he would come to us and say, yes, this is the program, this is what you have to study, but you have to take it with a pinch of salt. You need to develop your own thinking. You come up with this. I remember there were also you have to imagine Italy is also quite political, is a fairly political nation. It's so political things are discussed quite commonly also at young age, ideas and stuff. So it's and we were bringing things to him like little flyers and stuff, and say, guys, I see what is written here, but you need to think and you need to verify if these information are correct, whether they are applicable to what you believe, whether they are there are other point of views. To make sure this has been very useful. And I obviously reapplied this thing, and I ask also other people, yes, you need, yes, your boss tells you, but if it doesn't make sense, you need to question it. Maybe there is a different way. And this is the way that people have to think. So if it doesn't make sense, let's not do it that way.
Makes sense. More that message should get out to more people at a younger age. Very prescient. Elliot, it's a great story and journey that you've been on, and wishing you the best with it going forward. It's very inspiring, what you're doing and continue to do. For all our viewers that are going to be watching this particular episode on the YouTube channel or listening across the podcast networks, you've been listening to Elia Montanari, Head of Management and Control at the European Space Agency Business Applications Division, supporting the development of sustainable services that use space assets, supporting and funding entrepreneurs, also co-founder of the Space BayNX charity, using space science to superpower education and our next generation of explorers. Elia, it was a great time talking with you. Appreciate you sharing all this knowledge and story with us. And as we say, thank you for helping to create a better tomorrow from what you're doing. This is as they say, the final frontier, and the more we can invest in it and get younger kids interested in it, it's going to create a good future for all of us. So thank you very much.
My thanks goes to you. Thank you.